I am N.S. Venkatraman, Director, Nandini Consulting Center, and Chief Editor, Nandini Chemical Journal. On behalf of Nandini Consulting Center, I have pleasure in extending a hearty welcome. Now that the global climate meet at Glasgow has ended, and usual concerns have been expressed by several world leaders about the climate crisis faced in the world, inevitably we all feel that we have all heard these speeches several times before. One leader of one country said that the future generation would blame us if we would not tackle the climate crisis and bring down the emissions to a considerably low level. We have heard these statements several times before. Some other leader has said, what would happen if there would be half a degree temperature rise or 1 degree temperature rise? And what would happen if there could be 1.5 degree temperature rise? And the fact that some regions would not be there in the world map after 1940. We have heard all these statements several times before. So has anything new come into the Glasgow climate meet is the one question that must be haunting everybody's mind. Earlier, there was a Paris Climate Conference, which again was well attended and highly publicized. During the Paris Climate Conference, some framework were evolved to identify and find out some methodology to reduce the global emissions and solve the climate issue problem. Now, between Paris Climate Conference and the present Glasgow climate meet, has any visible changes for the better happened in the world market, in the world scenario? We need to check, and probably nothing much has happened. That's the ground reality. Now, several promises have been made. China has said a few months back that they would have zero by 2060. Now, our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has said that India would have zero emission by 2070. All these makes excellent hearing, and the world leaders are applauding Mr. Modi for this bold statement. Now, the fact is, or rather the ground reality is, will it be possible to attain zero emission at any time in the future? Here, what is the situation we have to see with clarity of mind and without prejudices and without wishful thinking? We all know that the global emission can be brought down to a zero level only if we world totally or largely eliminate the use of coal, crude oil, and natural gas, which are the energy source and which are the feedstock source for several industries. Now, we can't imagine a situation today when the world is without crude oil or natural gas or coal. In case we have to attain a zero emission, one way of doing this is curtail the production and consumption of these three major energy sources, or find out some method of taking the emissions like carbon dioxide, prevent it from getting into the atmosphere and use it elsewhere. These are the only two options available. Now, if the world has to get a situation of crude oil production being nil or nearly nil, then the economy of several countries in the Middle East, OPEC countries, Russia, Venezuela, and even USA to some extent, the economy will become totally upset and will not be sustainable. Therefore, these countries will never accept a situation when the crude oil production has to be largely curtailed or significantly curtailed. In the same way, in the case of countries like Australia, Indonesia, China, India, where the coal is a major source of energy today, if we tell these countries that the use of crude oil should be completely stopped, production of coal should be completely stopped, it will be an unacceptable situation today. So in case we have a situation like this, when crude oil, natural gas, coal production cannot be completely eliminated, how are we going to get the zero emission level? That is one question that is haunting the world. Now, in spite of tall talk during the Paris Climate Conference, the world production of crude oil or coal or natural gas has not come down in the last few years. Can we hope that this will happen in the post-Glasgow scenario? There is no hope, or there is no reason to think that this could happen. Now, In case we continue to have the production of crude oil, natural gas, and coal at the same level or nearly at the same level, then what is going to be the world scenario? It is said with a lot of noise that renewable energy could be the ideal way of combating the global emission problem. Renewable energy means basically solar power, wind power. Several capacities have been built in the renewable power sector during the last few years. There's no doubt about it. But the problem of the renewable power is its capacity utilization is very low. It is seasonal. In the case of wind energy and solar energy, it is seasonal. Monsoon period, the heat from the sun comes down to it comes down to the level that solar power production would significantly fall down. In the case of wind power, for example, in a place like Tamil Nadu, you got wind speed, good wind speed only for 4 months in a year. That means it's very, very obvious where renewable energy could be a big matter of pride for all of us. Renewable energy is not going to be a substitute for the fossil fuel as an energy source. This is the fact, the ground reality and a fair assessment of the scenario. Then what is the next option? Next option that is being talked about is electric vehicles. The world is building up electric vehicles at a feverish pitch right now, for which essential component is lithium-ion battery. Capacities for lithium-ion cell is also being created. Now, run the electric vehicles, the lithium-ion battery has been charged. Where are you going to get the power from? If you get the power from the renewable energy, it's good enough. But renewable energy capacity is so little and capacity utilization is so low that renewable energy cannot be a full source for supply of power to the lithium-ion batteries that are required for electric vehicles. Obviously, what we need to do is the lithium-ion battery has been supplied power from power stations which are using the fossil fuel. Then how does it help the situation? How does it reduce the emission? It doesn't do it. So it's only a part of the solution. Next session that will be given is use hydrogen. Now, hydrogen is an excellent fuel, a very, very friendly gas. There is no doubt about it. But there are what we call the gray hydrogen, which is produced from natural gas, or brown hydrogen, which is produced from coal, or green hydrogen, which is produced by electrolysis of water. Now, plenty of hydrogen capacities are being built around the world using natural gas. That is a gray hydrogen. That does not solve the problem because natural gas is nothing but methane. Methane is a very toxic gas. It is a global warming gas. Now, in all the processes involving natural gas, whether it is the production of natural gas, or processing of natural gas, or storage of natural gas, or distribution of natural gas, methane emission is there. Now, in the US itself, it has been estimated that each year in the US, 13 million tons of methane gas is being emitted, which is a very, very toxic, unfriendly gas. Now, use of natural gas is not without problem. Therefore, if we say that we are going to produce hydrogen using natural gas, what is the gray, called as the gray hydrogen, it does not solve the problem. Other problem is way of producing hydrogen is from coal, again, absolutely ruled out. Next, only alternative is go for water hydrolysis. Now, in the water hydrolysis process, what is the problem is very highly power intensive. 1 kilogram of hydrogen requires 48.2 kilowatt hour of power, which is very, very high. Now, okay, then what is the power going to come from water electrolysis? Renewable energy cannot provide that. It has to come from only from fossil fuel. What is the point in generating power for using fossil fuel and then giving it to this electrolysis process for hydrogen generation, and it does not become eco-friendly? So this is a problem. Now, what is the other way of combating CO2 emission is go for massive afforestation. It is being done. A lot of promises have been made. The subject has been discussed in the present Glasgow meet also. But then, what level of afforestation can be done? Already, the Amazon forest area is said to be getting depleted due to forest fires and a variety of other reasons. So that is also not a solution. Then where do we go from here? This is the problem today. In this problem today, targeting 70 by 2070 emissions, zero emissions, are we talking vacuum? Now let us take the case of India as a case study. Now India, production of crude oil in India is just around 30 million tons. India is importing 220 million tons of crude oil every year. India's consumption of crude oil is increasing at 6 to 7% per year. India's production of coal is now 720 million tons. India is importing around 220 million tons of coal nearly every year. That means India's total consumption of coal is somewhere around 900 million tons. Now, if India has to step up this economic growth rate, production has to increase. Obviously, fuel consumption has to go up. The fuel consumption can go up only by power production has to be stepping up. Now, the fuel consumption will inevitably go up if India's production has to increase. So, our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, has said that India has a target of 175 gigawatt earlier for renewable energy. Now, he has increased the target to 500 gigawatt per year. Good enough. Impossible with Modi's dynamism and capability to execute projects. Quite possible, Mr. Modi may reach this 500 gigawatt power. I have no capacity for renewable energy. I have no doubt about this. But then capacity utilization of renewable energy sector is only 20%. It is very seasonal. It cannot be a substitute. So now the question is, having concluded the global meet, Glasgow meet, what is the final conclusion that has come? Some countries have put up the emissions. There is no global consensus as what is the target for zero emissions right now. And some countries like India, China, Brazil, South Africa have said that the rich countries should provide $1 trillion to the developing countries to tackle the climate crisis. Now the rich countries have not committed themselves to provide this kind of money. So there is no consensus in this also. So the question finally is, after the Glasgow meet, will the world be better? Will the climate situation will be improved? Now here, what is happening here is, as usual, in the Glasgow meet also, there are a lot of environmental activists who seem to have made it a profession for themselves. They have gathered together in different cities, burnt effigies, show placard, perhaps show some black flags also to somebody, made some shoutings, and nothing goes beyond that. So it appears, even as the Glasgow meet, resolutions have been passed, observations have been made, promises have been made, but will the world become better? It's $1 million question. Thank you.